Imagine, what if the world's most advanced AI, the most secure banks, and the entire police force, combined, couldn't stop a few thieves? In 2025, a gang emerged that not only robbed banks but also hacked the entire police network. They were 2 steps ahead of the law at every step. But when billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency, a mysterious mastermind, and a retired detective came face to face, a game began that betrayed everyone. Who was the mastermind behind the Shadow Gang, and could the police stop the world's biggest digital heist? The story's ending will shock you. The story begins with a genius hacker named Bill, a master of technology who could defy even the world's most secure security systems. One day, he infiltrates the police's most advanced CCTV network so skillfully that the officers in the control room only notice a minor technical glitch. They assume it's a minor glitch in the system, but the next moment, the entire police station is devastated. News arrives that a multi-million-dollar robbery has occurred at one of the city's most secure banks. The police immediately activate their most powerful AI surveillance system, Spice, which can scan the entire city's cameras in seconds. The system quickly locates the thieves' car, and several police units arrive, but upon arriving at the scene, everyone is astonished. The street is completely empty, while the control room screens show the same car still driving. Only then do the officers realize that not just the bank, but the entire police network has been hacked. The next day, the investigation reveals another shocking discovery. The vault that was robbed belonged to a billionaire businessman who had hidden half the password to his $5 billion crypto account in a notebook. This meant the thieves had not only gotten their hands on money, but also the key to one of the world's largest digital assets. Meanwhile, the gang of criminals had begun preparing for their next mission. Their target was a massive building in Macau Tower, home to the headquarters of a major digital currency company. Upon entering the building, the gang took the entire staff hostage, intimidated them, and gained direct access to the main server. John led the gang, but Bill was the real driver behind the scenes. Once they gained access to the system, they discovered that the company's clients included some of the country's largest crypto investors, and that one of them held over $10 billion in his account. John immediately senses the danger and advises Bill to abandon the information, but Bill's greed has reached a point of no return. He orders his partner Max to copy the entire data. Within minutes, the entire office becomes a battlefield. The police have been alerted to the attack, and every floor of the building is being sealed off. Meanwhile, the gang, armed with the data, quickly heads for the elevator. But curiously, their leader John isn't with them. He's quietly sipping coffee in a cafe downstairs, hoping to avoid suspicion. But fate has other plans. A woman accidentally snaps his photo. Unnoticed at the time, this very photo will later become the most crucial link in the entire case. Meanwhile, a fierce battle erupts inside the elevator between the police and the criminals. The situation escalates to the point where the gang takes Captain Sam hostage. The remaining officers are now unable to fire. The criminals seize this opportunity and take Sam to the upper floors. But Sam isn't one to give up. Regaining the opportunity, he launches another attack and single-handedly confronts several criminals. He fights valiantly for a while, but the enemy is simply too numerous. Eventually, the gang overpowers him and moves on to their next move. The criminals handcuff Sam and take him straight to the roof of the building. The police follow, but it's too late. Once on the roof, the gang makes an unprecedented move. They leap from a tower hundreds of feet high. Death awaited them below, but they had special parachutes. Amidst the chaos, a woman loses her balance and is about to fall. Sam, without wasting a moment, rushes to her aid. Taking advantage of his bravery, the criminals once again escape the police. The situation becomes even more difficult when it's discovered that Bill has hacked the entire building's elevator system. Sam now has no way to get down. Forced to use a jumper cable and, risking his life, begins descending the tower. He somehow manages to reach the ground safely, but by then the gang has fled to another part of the city. Sometime later, the criminals land on the roof of a large hotel. They were confident they had escaped this time, but the police were already waiting for them. Then began a new game of deception and cunning. Using their masks, high-tech gadgets, and brilliant disguises, the gang confused the police and vanished into the hotel in no time. Meanwhile, Bill erased the data from all the hotel's security cameras. Now, the police were left with no footage or digital clues. For the first time, their sophisticated AI systems seemed completely helpless. Finally, the officers had to resort to old methods. They strapped small cameras to their bodies and began roaming the hotel like ordinary people. From the outside, everything appeared normal, but each camera was sending a live feed which was constantly being scanned by face recognition software. John, on the other hand, was no less. He was changing his appearance every few minutes, sometimes posing as a tourist, sometimes as hotel staff, sometimes as a security guard, and passing before the police's eyes. Recognizing him had become almost impossible. Then Captain Sam's eyes zeroed in on a face. It was Max. During the fight in the elevator, Sam noticed a distinctive earring on his ear, and that small detail now becomes his identity. Sam immediately begins chasing him, but Max disappears into the crowd as if he were never there. Meanwhile, the AI system tracks a face that doesn't exist in its database. The police immediately rush in after him, but this too turns out to be a premeditated move by John. He deliberately collides with an officer. The camera goes blurry for a few seconds, just enough time for the gang. By the time the police regain control, the entire gang has disappeared from the hotel. The next day, the atmosphere at the police station is extremely tense. The billionaire whose crypto account was robbed is furious. Meanwhile, the police's most advanced AI system continues to fail. Then Senior Officer Lara utters a name that leaves the entire room stunned. She declares that it's time to bring back the retired legend, Officer Wong. Sam laughs at this. He's unsure what an old man can accomplish in this high-tech era. But Lara reminds him that machines have already lost. AI was chasing criminals, while the criminals were already steps ahead. Now they needed a human, not a computer, who knew how to read human minds and behavior. Sometime later, Officers Rock and Helen set out to find Wong. Wong was once the police department's most feared undercover agent. His files were filled with stories of courage and risky missions, but his past also hid a pain that changed his entire life. Years ago, his partner was killed during a mission, and that partner was none other than Helen's father. When Rock and Helen arrive looking for him, he's not on a mission, but leisurely walking his dog. No one could believe that this was the man whose name was once synonymous with fear among criminals. Helen follows him to a cafe and tries to strike up a conversation with him, posing as a student. But the next moment, Wong himself sits down at her table and, smiling, says, "You've been following me all day, at least be a little professional." Helen is completely shocked. But the real shock comes when it's revealed that Wong has also stolen Rock's police badge without anyone noticing. He may have aged, but his eyes and mind are still as sharp and dangerous as ever. After some time, Wong arrives at the police station and begins reviewing all the footage related to the case. While AI hadn't yielded any significant results even after scanning millions of videos, Wong uncovers several crucial clues in just a few minutes. He believes that every criminal always looks at the camera at some point to check if it's on. This simple habit often becomes their most important identity. After watching the footage repeatedly, Wong recognizes several gang members. And for the first time, the police feel they're one step closer to their enemies. Meanwhile, John sat at his hideout, seething with anger. Bill's greed had jeopardized their entire operation. For the first time, the gang members' faces were captured on camera, and he held Bill solely responsible. In a rage, he attacked Bill and brutally beat him. John bluntly warned that if they were ever caught by the police, Bill would be the main culprit. But Bill had now surpassed the limits of fear and rationality. A much bigger game was playing out in his mind. He was convinced that if his final mission succeeded, the entire gang could disappear forever, taking billions of dollars with them. When Max tried to stop the growing tension between them, John angrily pushed him away. The situation escalated to such a pitch that the rest of the gang had to intervene to calm the situation. Meanwhile, at the police station, Wong was constantly studying the photographs and screenshots. While the AI system was merely viewing data, Wong was trying to decipher the humans behind those images. Then, his eyes repeatedly linger on a mysterious man in a long coat. A moment later, he's shown a photograph that a woman at the hotel had inadvertently taken. Upon seeing the photograph, Wong's eyes light up. He's convinced this man can't be an ordinary criminal. Then, a name from his past flashes through his mind. Shadow, a former agent who once served in the world's most dangerous assassination unit before mysteriously disappearing. Upon hearing Shadow's name, Wong understands that this time he's not facing an ordinary gang, but highly trained and dangerous individuals. He immediately orders the formation of a new surveillance unit, but he soon realizes that the police force is now almost entirely reliant on machines. The old-fashioned undercover units and surveillance teams were abolished years ago. The methods that once made Wong a legend have now virtually disappeared from the police department. The next day, Helen is training at the gym when some officers start mocking her. They believed she was too small and weak to be a police officer. Initially, her patience broke. Within seconds, she threw the officer standing in front of her to the ground. The entire gym watched in amazement. Wong, standing at a distance, also witnessed the scene. Later, he approached Helen and smiling said, "Today you have earned my respect." That night, Wong, sitting alone on the rooftop, is lost in memories of the past. He remembers his closest friend, a former partner who lost his life during a mission. That friend was none other than Helen's father. Looking up at the sky, Wong vows to himself that this time he will not let his friend's daughter come to harm at any cost. The next day, training for the new surveillance unit begins. Wong teaches them how a true undercover agent thinks, how he moves, and how to notice every detail, big and small, without drawing attention. According to him, the biggest rule was, never look like a cop. Gradually, the team members took to the city streets. Some pretended to read newspapers, some watched people drinking coffee, and others blended into the crowd as ordinary passers-by. But Wong had a different plan for Helen. He kept her with him, away from the rest of the team. According to him, Helen was his greatest hidden weapon. 12 days passed like this. Meanwhile, Bill was preparing for the biggest mission of his life. He had discovered a digital vault containing billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency. If this mission succeeded, the entire gang could disappear forever. Meanwhile, Wong's team was slowly closing in on their target, but for several days no major breakthroughs were achieved. On the 15th day, Helen went out to buy food. Just then, he notices some drunken men harassing the girls. Helen immediately rushes towards them, but Wong stops her. He reminds her that they're on an undercover mission and should call the regular police. But Helen doesn't listen. A fierce fight breaks out in the next moment. Initially, Helen single-handedly overpowers several of the thugs, but the situation gradually turns against her due to the sheer number of men. Just then, Wong arrives at the scene. Within minutes, all the thugs are lying on the ground, writhing in pain. Later, inside the van, Wong scolds Helen, saying she jeopardized the entire mission, but Helen isn't one to back down. She bluntly states that if the police can't help people, then such surveillance is pointless. For the first time, the two have a serious argument. That's when Wong decides it's time to tell her the whole truth. He explains that years ago, he and Helen's father were on a dangerous undercover mission for 8 months. One day, they witnessed criminals kidnapping a child. According to the rules, they should have remained silent, but Wong couldn't help but jump straight into the fray. The criminals severely injured him and nearly killed him. Then Helen's father came to his rescue. He saved Wong, but he himself could never return. Hearing this story, Helen's eyes well up with tears. Wong's voice also becomes choked. He says that the most difficult task for a police officer is not pulling the trigger but waiting for the right moment, because one wrong decision can end not just the mission but someone's entire life. But then fate was about to give them the opportunity they had been waiting for. In a crowded market, Wong suddenly spotted a face he had been searching for. It was John. The sight of John alerted the entire team. Wong immediately orders that no one look directly at him or point any cameras at him. Everything must appear perfectly normal, as John is not only dangerous but also extremely cautious. As soon as John realizes 2 people are watching him, they immediately begin pretending to be a couple. Seeing this, Wong realizes that months of hard work are finally paying off, and the prey is now within their reach for the first time. The entire team follows him without arousing suspicion. Gradually, they determine which building John has entered, but then Helen decides to go inside herself. This move is extremely risky. John spots her and becomes slightly suspicious. He quietly reaches into his pocket and prepares a knife. Meanwhile, Wong, sitting at a distance, is watching the footage. Within seconds, he realizes that John has noticed Helen. He immediately enters the building and, without wasting any time, begins pretending to be Helen's father. He even removes the Bluetooth device from Helen's ear as a pretext to avoid John's suspicion. Then, he sits comfortably next to John and begins a conversation as if they were just meeting for the first time. During their conversation, Wong offers John an apple. It appears to be an ordinary apple, but it contains a small camera. As John takes the apple, the camera captures a clear image of his face. The police had gotten their clearest shot yet. However, the game wasn't over yet. John was still alert and watching them. So Wong broke into a nearby apartment and calmed the woman living there. Meanwhile, using a small camera already installed in the elevator, the team determined which floor John had gotten off at. Rock immediately installed more cameras on that floor. Soon they had their biggest tip-off. Once John's location, apartment number 22, was known, Wong wasted no time. A flat across the street was rented, allowing John's every move to be monitored. The team watched John for hours through binoculars and cameras. Sometimes he would go out, sometimes he would stay locked in his room for hours. But the strangest thing was that he didn't seem to be making any significant preparations. A search of John's trash also began. One day, the team found a pile of torn Sudoku puzzles. At first glance, they appeared to be just old papers. But Wong was convinced there was a secret behind them. The problem was that no one on the team could decipher the puzzles. Meanwhile, John sat comfortably in his room, popping bubble wrap. A few days later, Wong, using his new identity, tried to get closer to John. He pretended to be a neighbor. They met in the market, and John approached him. Suddenly he smiled and said, "Your hands are quite strong. Do you shoot a gun?" "No, I've been exercising since childhood." John wasn't convinced, but he let the conversation slide for now. Wong then invited him to dinner. As evening approaches, Wong and Helene arrive at John's apartment, having completed preparations for their cover mission. Stepping inside, John's sharp eyes scan every corner of the room. Throughout dinner, he constantly asks questions. His goal wasn't just to have a conversation, but to verify whether Wong and Helene's fabricated stories matched each other. But he didn't realize that Wong remembered every detail of Helene's childhood. That's why they answered every question without hesitation and without pause. By the end of the night, John's suspicions had largely been allayed, but he wasn't such an easy man. Upon returning to his apartment, he orders Bill to conduct a thorough background check on both of them. Meanwhile, the police were already prepared. Wong and Helene's fake identities, fake records, and entire fabricated histories had already been uploaded into the system. Everything was progressing according to plan, and John was gradually beginning to trust them. The police began to believe they had finally caught up with the gang's most dangerous member. But that very night, there's a knock on the door. As soon as Wong opens the door, the man standing there attacks without a moment's notice. It's Tim, Bill's twin brother. Tim isn't just a criminal, but a highly trained and dangerous fighter. Within seconds, the entire room becomes a battlefield. Wong manages to knock out Wong's first gun, but then discovers Tim has a second. The next moment, gunfire reverberates throughout the apartment. Meanwhile, Bill, sitting somewhere far away, is watching the entire fight unfold live. Surprisingly, there's no worry on his face, as this attack wasn't a fluke. It was part of a pre-planned plan. During dinner, he had secretly hacked Helen's phone. Now, he had access not only to Helen's data but also to the police station's numerous cameras and surveillance systems. Meanwhile, the surveillance team across the street saw everything as normal. Their cameras showed no fighting. Bill had once again proven that technology was the most dangerous weapon in his hands, but there was a small flaw in his perfect plan. The surveillance team became suspicious when Helen suddenly appeared before them, even though she was still inside the room on the monitor. Seeing this contradiction, all the officers realized their cameras had been hacked. The entire team immediately sprang into action. At the same time, Bill informed his brother Tim that the police were approaching. Hearing this, Tim intensified his attack. He fired repeatedly, forcing Wong to hide, and then, using his special cables, jumped from the balcony and escaped through a window. By the time the police arrived, he had disappeared into the darkness. The next day, the surveillance team returned to their duties. Meanwhile, the police began a thorough search of John's apartment. They discovered an entire closet full of bubble wrap. The other officers thought it was just trash, but Wong immediately realized it was connected to the mysterious Sudoku puzzles they had found earlier. While he was trying to piece together the puzzle, the situation suddenly became explosive. A heavy truck speeding by hits a police van. The van spins several times and crashes directly into the police building. Within seconds, most of the officers inside are injured or unconscious. Immediately, a large group of armed criminals emerges from the truck and attacks the police station. A hail of bullets erupts. Several officers are killed on the spot, while explosives blow up several police vehicles. The entire scene resembles a war zone. At first, it appears as if the criminals have launched an open war against the entire police force. But Lara quickly realizes that this is not a real attack, but a diversionary tactic. She immediately orders the surveillance team to ensure that no matter what happens, no one is to leave their posts, and keep an eye on John. After a while, Helen regains consciousness. She pulls the injured Wong out of the car, picks up a gun lying on the ground, and jumps straight into the fray. Within minutes, she neutralizes several attackers. Soon, Wong regains consciousness, and the two launch a counterattack. During the fight, Wong suddenly realizes a crucial connection. He realizes that the Sudoku puzzles contained a secret code in Braille, and that John deciphered it using bubble wrap. This discovery could change the course of the entire case. Wong immediately orders Helen to contact the intelligence team to decipher the code, but at the same time, the situation inside the police station becomes even more dangerous. The second group of criminals has penetrated deep inside the building, and the real battle is about to begin. Meanwhile, two members of the surveillance team finally track down John at an old orphanage, but before they can relay the information to the police, the power to the entire police station goes out, disrupting the communication system. Meanwhile, some thugs attack John at the orphanage. During the fight, John realizes that Bill has betrayed him and wants to eliminate him. But despite his age, John remains extremely dangerous. With a knife in hand, he single-handedly confronts several attackers and, despite being seriously injured, eliminates them. Meanwhile, a fierce battle rages at the police station. The criminal's primary target is Wong, who has a hefty bounty on his head. However, Wong also eliminates the attackers one by one. Meanwhile, Helen is hiding inside the building trying to relay information about the Braille court when a female criminal attacks her. A fierce scuffle ensues. After a lengthy fight, Helen throws him out of a window, winning the encounter. Shortly after, police backup arrives, ending the bloody battle at the police station. Meanwhile, at the orphanage, John has eliminated all the attackers. Just then, Tim arrives and reveals that he was the one who orchestrated the whole plan. He realized John had become a threat, so he had come to eliminate him. A deadly battle ensues between the two. They were equal fighters. While fighting, they break a window and fall down. Then, Tim realizes a knife has pierced his stomach. He attempts a final attack, but John kills him with his own weapon. Thus, Bill loses his most trusted companion and brother forever. Meanwhile, the police surround the orphanage. Meanwhile, Bill is devastated by the news of his brother's death. He now has only one option left, to carry out his final and greatest plan. With Tim's death, Bill realizes the game is slipping out of his hands, but before leaving, he makes his final move. Meanwhile, Lara informs Wang and Helen that after the last attack, millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency was transferred to the police's digital vault for safekeeping. This decision sounded safe, but the real danger was yet to be revealed. When the police inspect the vault, everyone is shocked. The vault is completely empty. The investigation reveals that the real thieves entered the scene disguised as backup personnel during the attack on the police station. While all the officers were busy rescuing the injured and fighting, they easily made off with all the digital wealth. Meanwhile, John emerges alive from the rubble of the orphanage. He is momentarily stunned by the devastation around him and Tim's corpse, but then the police surround John from all sides. Everyone expected him to try to escape as usual, but this time something different happened. Surprisingly, John surrendered himself to the police without any resistance. He calmly declared that he was ready to confess everything. Meanwhile, at the police station, the AI system was restarted, and within moments, the location of the van carrying the stolen cryptocurrency was pinpointed. The entire police force immediately set out in pursuit. After a long chase, they reached a large hotel, but upon reaching there, the criminals began running in different directions, confusing the police. Amid this chaos, Wong reached the hotel's laundry room and met Bill for the first time. The two were now face to face in a dangerous battle that had been raging for months. A fierce scuffle broke out between them. But Bill was not alone. His two companions also jumped in to help, and now Wong was facing three people at once. Meanwhile, a massive event involving thousands of people was underway outside the hotel. Helen realized that Bill could take advantage of the crowd and disappear, and her hunch was correct. Meanwhile, John, sitting in a police van, seizes the opportunity and retrieves his phone. The police knew that, if anyone could lead them to Bill, it was only John, so they asked him to call Bill. But there was a major problem. All the gang's devices were protected from tracing. Now, only human eyes, not technology, could catch the culprit. Helen had to identify the person on the phone in the crowd of thousands. Meanwhile, in the laundry room, Wong was constantly fighting with Bill's associates. With great difficulty, he knocked one criminal unconscious and locked the other inside the washing machine. Meanwhile, Bill realized that the police were setting a trap for him. He immediately changed his location. Then Helen remembered an old lesson from Wong: no matter how clever a criminal is, he inadvertently glances at the cameras repeatedly. In the crowd, her eyes fall on a man who was constantly monitoring the surrounding cameras and people. Helen suspects this is Bill, but before she can give her team the full details, circumstances suddenly change. John suddenly attacks the police, throws a gas grenade, and takes advantage of the chaos to escape. Meanwhile, Rock finds Helen and gives her his earpiece so she can stay in touch with the rest of the team. But a short while later, as Bill flees toward the train station, Rock pursues him alone. Unfortunately, he encounters John on the way. John attacks him without warning, stabbing him multiple times. Rock collapses to the ground. This brave officer, a trusted member of the team for years, is now breathing his last. Meanwhile, John goes straight to Bill. There was no trace of trust left between them. John had discovered that his own people had conspired against him. In a rage, he attacked Bill. Before dying, Bill finally revealed the password to the billions of dollars worth of stolen cryptocurrency to John, and then died on the spot. The world's most dangerous hacker had finally fallen victim to his own greed. By the time Helen reaches Rock, it's too late. Meanwhile, the police arrest Bill's remaining associates, but the real threat was still at large. Now John possessed not only the password, but also the route to all the stolen digital wealth. The police had no concrete clues to find him. Once again, John had vanished like a shadow. After some time, Wong and Helen realized something crucial. John certainly knew the password, but converting such a large digital asset into cash wasn't easy. This meant he had to contact a major player. The police waited for that opportunity. Finally, news arrives that John is scheduled to meet with an influential businessman through whom he intends to deal the stolen cryptocurrency. Helen immediately begins his pursuit. The meeting was scheduled to take place at a quiet tea house. Everything appeared normal on the outside, but inside, a very dangerous game was being played. John was as vigilant as ever. Within minutes, he realized someone was following him, and it was none other than Helen. Once again, the two were facing off, but this time, Wong wasn't taking any chances. He had already deployed his team throughout the area. As John tried to escape, the police began surrounding him from all sides. Yet John wasn't one to give up. He made a last attempt to escape, only to collide with Wong. A final confrontation ensued between the two. For a while, they fought evenly, but this time the situation had completely changed. John had no escape route and no hope of survival. Eventually, Wong overpowers him, and the police arrest him. Shadow, after years of defying the law, has finally fallen. By the end of the film, all the stolen cryptocurrency is recovered. John is behind bars, while Wong and Helene complete their mission. But the biggest change in this entire journey came within Helene. She was no longer just a young officer. She had learned the same lesson her father and Wong had learned years earlier, that the most powerful weapon to defeat criminals is not just strength or technology, but patience, wisdom, and making the right decisions at the right time. With this message, this thrilling story reaches its spectacular conclusion.